Resilience is a hot topic these days, across many fields. In psychology, certainly, but also in business, education, and child development. Why all the interest? Well, it turns out that a person's resilience can be one of the top predictors of his or her future success. And it's an important component of thriving, especially in the workplace. Resilience is the ability to successfully handle life's setbacks and adapt to stressful situations. Resilience comes from the Latin word resilio, which means to jump back. In physics, resilience is the ability of a substance to spring back into shape after it's compressed or stretched. It's elasticity. In psychology, resilience is a person's capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, to bounce back. We all need resilience to face everyday challenges. The better able we are to handle obstacles, even small ones, the less they will interrupt our lives. Our well-being depends on our ability to handle what life throws at us. Resilience can determine who succeeds and who fails. Setbacks are part of any undertaking, and those who react to them productively will make the most progress. Resilience skills are critical for handling workplace stressors. The pace and intensity of the modern workplace has led to widespread stress and burnout. 40% of employees say their job is very or extremely stressful. A global survey of over 100,000 employees found that depression, anxiety, and stress accounted for 83% of emotional health cases in employee assistance programs. Resilience can buffer people against this stress and burnout. A thriving workplace is one that fosters resilience in its employees. So let's look more closely at what exactly resilience is and how it can be developed. Resilience has two components. The first is the ability to withstand pressure in the moment. The second is the ability to recover quickly from adversity. People who have low levels of resilience are slow to recover from challenges. They may stay angry or suffer from depression or anxiety. They have trouble letting go and returning to normal functioning. People with high levels of resilience cope with negative events in ways that allow them to more quickly return to normal. Resilience comes into play when we face a challenge that causes stress. Now, not all challenges cause stress. A challenge is simply any gap between where you are and where you want to be, or between what's happening and what you would like to be happening. A little bit of a challenge can be good. When we talked about flow, we saw that flow occurs when a challenge is well matched to our skill level. This type of challenge is motivating. We're encouraged to take action to close the gap. Challenges can be fun, interesting, and energizing. An unsolved puzzle is a challenge. There's a gap between the desired situation, a solved puzzle, and the current situation in which the puzzle is not solved. Our workday is full of similar challenges. We experience a challenge as stressful when we feel we don't have the skills or resources needed to deal with it. This moves us from a state of flow to a state of anxiety. A challenge affects us more strongly when it threatens something we care deeply about, something really important to us, like a relationship, our health, or our job. Many of the challenges we face in the workplace can be stressful. Do you or any of your employees experience time constraints, high workloads, competing demands, administrative hassles, or limited resources? These can all lead to stress. In today's competitive environment, they're often unavoidable. But by recognizing the value of resilience in the workplace, we can learn to respond more effectively and recover more quickly from the challenges we face individually and as an organization. A resilient workforce performs well under pressure and deals quickly and effectively with change. Resilient employees are able to deal with uncertainty and maintain their productivity in the face of setbacks. Now, fortunately, we can all learn to be more resilient. Resilience is developed through thoughts and behaviors that can be adopted and cultivated by anyone. There are strategies that we can use to strengthen our resilience over time. A combination of factors contributes to resilience. Some of them you'll be familiar with, because several of the topics we've discussed as elements contributing to well-being also positively impact resilience. Mindfulness, relationships, optimism, compassion, and meaning all increase resilience. Let's start with mindfulness. Studies of college students have found mindfulness to be a significant predictor of resilience. Mindfulness training has been shown to foster resilience in teachers. A study of primary care physicians found a positive relationship between mindfulness and resilience. And the resilience of nurses has been increased using a mindfulness intervention. Mindfulness can help us cope with difficult situations by preventing us from getting too overwhelmed by our emotions. Not dwelling on negative thoughts and emotions allows us to move forward. Instead of obsessing over things that can't be changed, mindful people accept that they need to adapt to the new circumstances. A study by researchers in Singapore looked specifically at the impact of mindfulness on rumination and the use of coping strategies in stressful situations. They found that higher mindfulness did in fact lead to less rumination and greater use of effective coping strategies. Research shows that one of the primary factors in resilience is having caring and supportive relationships. People can help you cope with adversity by providing both practical assistance and emotional support. Our bodies have different types of response to stress. A fight or flight response, a challenge response that we'll discuss a little later on, and a tend and befriend response. This is the desire to be near or talk to friends and family when we're under stress. It's driven by the hormone oxytocin that regulates social interaction. These pro-social instincts during stress can bring us needed social support. People who feel they can rely on or turn to others for help or encouragement are more resilient. Research has shown this very clearly. A study of men and women who had experienced the sudden death of their spouse found that the ones who had confided in others close to them showed significantly fewer signs of depression and had fewer health problems a year after their loss. Another study found that women cancer patients who attended a weekly support group lived an average of 18 months longer. Resilient people invest in their relationships so that they have someone to lean on during hard times. They aren't afraid of asking for help. People who have more friends at work will have more social support and as a result will be more resilient. Now, another factor linked to resilience is optimism. In the earlier lecture on optimism, I mentioned that an optimistic explanatory style views negative events as temporary and specific, rather than permanent and global. This is how resilient people view adversity. They don't expect it will last forever, and they don't let it affect everything else in their lives. Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, lost her husband Dave unexpectedly while they were on vacation with friends in Mexico. He had an undetected heart problem and died while exercising. Dave was only 47 years old at the time, and Sheryl was left to raise their young children without him. Adam Grant, the Wharton professor who I've mentioned numerous times, was a friend of Sheryl and Dave. He shared a lot of the research on resilience with Sheryl to help her as she grieved. A few years later, they published a book together called Option B to help others facing adversity. One of the important lessons in resilience that Adam taught Sheryl was optimism. After Dave's death, Sheryl believed she would never be happy again. She felt her current situation of grief would be permanent. Adam helped Sheryl to understand that the extreme pain she was experiencing shortly after her husband's death would not last forever. She would experience joy again. He reminded her of the many good things she still had in her life: her children, her parents and siblings, a job she loved, and financial security. Dave was gone, but she needed to remember that he was one specific part of her life. A big one, yes, but she hadn't lost everything. When bad things happen, seeing them as temporary and specific will help you to be more resilient. Pointing out temporary, specific causes to your team can boost their resilience as well. Another key factor for building resilience is compassion, both self-compassion and compassion for others. Showing compassion at work helps us to build stronger relationships with our colleagues. And we've already discussed the value of social support for resilience. A culture of compassion can increase everyone's resilience. Self-compassion is being kind to oneself when faced with hardship or adversity. It replaces harsh self-criticism with caring. We don't beat ourselves up when we fail or make a mistake. And this helps us to bounce back from adversity. We can move forward more quickly if we aren't ruminating about what happened. People with a greater sense of meaning and purpose in life show increased resilience. When we feel stressed by small daily challenges, focusing on a longer-term goal can help us to keep things in perspective. When you're working towards something meaningful, small setbacks seem less important. Studies conducted in companies, nonprofits, government, and the military have all found that meaningful work increases resilience. The more people feel their work helps others, the less depressed and emotionally exhausted they feel. On days when people report having made a positive difference to someone at work, they feel more energized and capable of dealing with difficult situations. The next time you start to feel stressed about something, take a step back and remind yourself what you're trying to accomplish and why. Talk to your employees about the why of work as often as possible. Remind them how their efforts contribute to making a meaningful impact in the lives of others. Now let's look at some additional strategies for building resilience. Let's start with an immediate coping strategy that you can use to help calm yourself down in the moment so that you're able to more effectively deal with a difficult situation. We are more successful at handling any challenge, big or small, when we're calm. In the lecture on mindfulness, we saw that anxiety activates the sympathetic nervous system, our fight-or-flight response. The amygdala takes over and our emotions prevent us from thinking clearly. We need to activate the parasympathetic nervous system in order to calm our mind so that we can think more clearly. Slow, deep breathing is the fastest, most effective way to tell our brain everything is okay. It pushes the brain towards parasympathetic activity for natural resilience. Stanford researcher Emma Sapala used a breathing intervention to help veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress. She found that the breathing practice restored their resilience. After a week-long intensive breathing program, their symptoms decreased significantly, and the results remained 1 year later. The impact of the program was so powerful that one of the veterans, a young Marine, thanked Sapala for giving him his life back. A simple, effective technique that you may want to try is 4x4 breathing. Breathe in slowly through your nose while counting to 4. Pause at the top of your inhalation for another count of 4, and then exhale slowly through your nose for the same count. Pause for a count of 4, and then repeat this several more times. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, pause for 4. Try deep breathing anytime you feel your tension and anxiety rising. It immediately starts to slow your heart rate and bring your tension level down. Practice using your breath to calm yourself even when you face small challenges that cause a bit of frustration or mild anxiety. And do this as often as you feel the need throughout the day when you're experiencing greater adversity. These mindful pauses can boost your resilience at any moment. Now let's turn to consider 4 more factors that can boost resilience: how you view stress, benefit finding, experiencing adversity, and acceptance. One of the most powerful strategies for boosting resilience is to shift the way we view stress. I talked in an earlier lecture about how people can have a growth mindset, believing their abilities can be developed and improved, or a fixed mindset, believing their abilities can't be changed. Well, we also have mindsets about stressful situations. And like all mindsets, how we think about a situation can change its effect on us. Kelly McGonigal, a Stanford psychologist, explains in her book, The Upside of Stress, that our bodies can respond to adversity in different ways. A threat response is what you know of as a fight or flight response. It prepares you for self-defense, constricting your blood vessels, ramping up inflammation, and getting immune cells ready to help you heal. This response is useful in a dangerous situation, but on a sustained basis, it can hurt your cardiovascular health. Another type of response to stress is the challenge response. In this case, your body responds like it does to physical exercise, maximizing blood flow to give you more energy. This type of response helps you perform better, increasing your confidence and concentration. Hormones are released that improve learning and memory, enhance empathy and intuition, and protect your heart. So this gives us two ways of viewing stress, as something bad for us or something good for us. And the way we see it actually changes our body's response. Choosing to view your stress as something positive that can help you to perform better activates a challenge response in your body, which makes your stress beneficial. Worrying that your stress is bad for you causes you to have a threat response, which in most cases isn't good for you. So when you face adversity or even daily struggles, remind yourself that stress can help you to perform better. This way of viewing the situation makes it less threatening, so you're more likely to have a challenge response than a threat response. Your mindset can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The belief that stress is bad makes stress harmful. If you change your view of stress to see how it can help you be smarter, stronger, and more successful, it will do just that. Resilient people have a stress is helpful rather than a stress is harmful mindset. And fortunately, researchers have demonstrated that a person's mindset regarding stress can be changed. Jeremy Jameson and his colleagues at the University of Rochester conducted a study with college students who were preparing to take the GRE, an entrance exam for PhD programs. They brought the students in to take a practice exam. Beforehand, half of the students read a passage about the benefits of feeling anxious before a test, explaining that research shows it may help them to perform better. Students who read the passage scored an average of 55 points higher on the practice GRE. And a month later, they scored an average of 65 points higher on the actual GRE. Reading the passage had shifted their mindset about a stressful situation, and experiencing those feelings of stress as less threatening activated a challenge response, which enhanced their performance. In another study, Harvard Business School professor Allison Wood Brooks asked college students to sing a karaoke song in public. I believe it was Journey's Don't Stop Believin'. Anyway, she asked participants to say to themselves, I'm anxious, or I'm excited, or nothing before going on stage. The karaoke video game evaluated their performance, and the I'm anxious group did the worst, scoring 53%. Those who said nothing came in next at 69%. And the group who said I'm excited scored an average of 81%. Their stress is helpful mindset helped them to perform better. Now, telling yourself that you're excited when you feel stressed can help switch your mindset. Another way to see a situation as less threatening is to remind yourself of your strengths and the resources you have to handle the problem. Think of past difficulties that you've overcome and the people who support you. The more you believe in your ability to confront a situation, the easier it will be for you to view it as a challenge rather than a threat. So the next time you notice you're feeling stressed, maybe your heart is pounding, your palms are sweaty, or you're breathing rapidly, tell yourself, this is good. My body is preparing me for action by giving me extra energy, focusing my attention, and heightening my senses. This stress is going to help me to perform better. You can also influence how your team views stress. Talk to them about the upside of stress. Explain how our bodies can respond to stress in ways that help us to perform better. The next time your team faces adversity, keep them focused on the challenge of trying to figure out a solution. Another way to build resilience is through benefit finding, or looking for the silver lining. It may sound cliché, but finding some benefit that has come as a result of a negative event can be very helpful. We can learn and grow from adversity. Benefit finding is not about denying what happened or implying that adversity is a good thing. It's just trying to find some good in the bad. Research shows that this can be a healthy coping strategy. In a study of breast cancer survivors, 2/3 of the women interviewed reported that their lives had been altered for the better after developing the disease. Some said their illness had helped them realize what truly mattered to them. They started to change the way they were spending their time, often spending more time with family. Similar results have been found in studies of people living with HIV and heart disease. When people experience a positive psychological change as a result of struggle with adversity, psychologists refer to it as post-traumatic growth. It represents a personal transformation, a change in the way you see yourself or the world around you. There are many different positive changes that people can experience as a result of a difficult situation. Some gain insight by learning something positive about themselves. They realize that they're stronger and more resourceful than they thought they were. Experiencing a hardship can bring you closer to others, strengthening your relationships and helping you to appreciate them more. You may have experienced this with colleagues at work. Going through a crisis together can bring you much closer to one another. Finding benefit in adversity is an effective coping strategy that can help you and your employees experience resilience. In this way, experiencing a hardship can actually help everyone to thrive. In fact, experiencing adversity actually increases our resilience by enabling us to learn ways of coping. Mark Seary is a psychologist at the University of Buffalo. He and his colleagues tracked the well-being of over 2,000 people for 4 years. They also gave them a list of 37 negative life events like divorce, being the victim of violence, or having a serious injury, and asked how many of these events they had experienced. When they analyzed the data, the researchers found that people in the middle, who had experienced a moderate amount of adversity, had the highest well-being, with fewer health issues, lower levels of depression, and higher levels of life satisfaction. Since all of us will inevitably face hardships along our path, it's good to know that these experiences can help us to grow stronger and learn how to handle adversity, strengthening our resilience. Even small obstacles can be an opportunity to learn coping skills that can help us to face larger challenges. It also gives us a sense of confidence that we'll be able to handle future difficulties. You can work on building your resilience by looking for experiences that push you outside of your comfort zone. You could train for a 5K run, participate in an open mic night, or learn to surf, or try out for a part in the community theater. Each of these challenges will strengthen your resilience. If you or your team experience an especially difficult hardship, an exercise that can help to speed recovery is to write about the event. When we experience adversity, we often relive the incident over and over in our heads. Now, this rumination is like cognitively spinning our wheels. It prevents us from moving forward. Taking some time to write down all of your thoughts and feelings about the event has been shown to make a positive difference. James Pennebaker is a social psychologist at the University of Texas at Austin. For decades, he studied how people interpret traumatic events in their lives. In one study, he asked people to spend 15 minutes on 3 or 4 consecutive days writing about the most upsetting experience in their life. He discovered that expressive writing is good for our well-being. People who wrote about their thoughts and feelings had less anxiety and depression, better moods, lower blood pressure and heart rates, and better functioning immune systems. Writing about a difficult time creates a distance between us and the event, decreasing our emotional reaction and helping us overcome the traumatic experience. It allows us to make sense of what has happened in a way that can bring closure and more meaning into our lives. The more we understand something and why it occurred, the less we dwell on it, and the less of an influence it has on our lives. Now, I'd like to finish with one last coping strategy for enhanced resilience: acceptance. Much of resilience comes from our ability to adapt to a new situation, often one that we don't want. Acceptance can make this easier. Acceptance comes from acknowledging that there are things in life that are beyond our control. People who understand this are much happier because they don't waste time and effort in frustrated attempts to change that which they can't control. The concept of acceptance can be hard to understand. Some people misinterpret it to mean accepting everything as it is. If I embrace acceptance, that means I shouldn't set goals or take any action. But that's not what it means. You can accept that it's raining and grab an umbrella. Acceptance isn't resignation, nor does it mean being passive. It means recognizing that there are some things beyond your control. Acceptance is figuring out where you do have influence so you can direct your efforts more effectively. Identifying what's outside of your control and accepting that allows you to dedicate your resources more fully to that which you can control. Neuropsychologist Rick Hansen uses the analogy of an apple tree. You can't make the tree grow apples, but there are many things that you can do to increase the likelihood that apples will grow on the tree. Your focus should be on those things. One study of resilience tracked hundreds of children who were at risk because they grew up in environments with severe poverty, mental illness, or alcohol abuse. Many of the children experienced problems like mental health issues or delinquency, but about a third of them were okay. The researchers identified one factor that these children had in common. They all felt a strong sense of control over their lives. Resilient people believe they have the power to shape their lives because they focus on the things that they can control. News anchor Dan Harris, who wrote a book about mindfulness entitled 10% Happier, called this being wisely ambitious. Now, there's a balance between caring and not caring, between ambition and contentment. He uses writing his book as an example. He hoped it would be a bestseller, but he knew he had no direct control over how many books he would sell. All he could do was do his best work. So set goals and work towards them, but accept the limits of your influence. Resilient people understand that sometimes things don't work out. They try to learn what they can from the experience and then move on to another goal. The flexibility to change in response to circumstances is essential for maintaining resilience. Accept the things that you can't control so that you can focus your energy on the things you can influence. Stay flexible in order to adapt to changes, and help your team to do the same. A lack of resilience will not only prevent your employees from thriving, it can also lead to burnout. Burnout is a psychological syndrome that results from chronic stress at work. It has three components: exhaustion or lack of energy, cynicism or loss of enthusiasm, and ineffectiveness or diminished capacity to perform. Exhaustion is the most widely reported of the three aspects of burnout, but it also often leads people to distance themselves emotionally and cognitively from work in order to cope with the stress, and this leads to cynicism and ineffectiveness. People who experience burnout feel depleted, distant, and discouraged. Burnout negatively impacts performance and our physical and mental health. Becoming more resilient yourself and helping your employees build resilience will reduce the likelihood of burnout. Encourage the people you work with to view adversity as a challenge rather than a threat. Look for something positive that has come from a difficult situation. Remind everyone that facing adversity can help you all to build your resilience muscle. Stay flexible when confronting change, and accept what you can't control so that you and your team can focus on what you can do. Remember the importance of mindfulness, optimism, relationships, compassion, and meaning for resilience. And don't forget that any time you start to feel stressed, taking a few long, deep breaths can immediately calm you down and boost your resilience in the moment.